Okay, so we shall officially begin. Good morning, everyone. My name is Kim Bay. I am the program coordinator of Democracy Watch Philippines, and I will be your moderator for today's event. Today, we launched Democracy Watch's voter education campaign, organized together with the Commission on Elections. Vote Right 2022 is a nonpartisan voter education program to be organized with different colleges and universities across the country. Democracy Watch and COMELEC have been official partners for voter education since 2015, and this year we again aim to engage the youth and encourage them to help achieve a safe, honest, accurate, and credible elections. So without further ado, I will be introducing our first speaker to open the event today. We have with us Bishop Pablo Virgilio Ambo David, the president of the Catholic Bishops' Conference of the Philippines. Bishop Ambo, I turn the floor over to you po.
Thank you. Magandang umaga sa inyong lahat, and I hope you don't mind that I address you in Filipino. At maraming salamat sa Democracy Watch, sa mga conveners nito for inviting me to address especially the young people. Alam ninyo mga kabataan, ang inyong pagboto ay isa sa mga pinaka-importanting expressions ng inyong partisipasyon sa buhay pampolitika ng ating bansa. Since you all, I am sure, would like to have good governance in our country, you have to do your part. And your part as a good and responsible citizen by voting intelligently. Kaya maraming salamat, Vote Right, for organizing this very important online forum. Kamakailan nakausap ko ang ilang mga kabataan, and they asked me a very simple question. Ang sabi nila, Bishop, paano ba boboto ang isang mabuting Kristiyano? And I tried to articulate some thoughts. And I entitled them, mga puntos tungkol sa pagboto ng isang mabuting Kristiyano. Number 1, ang mabuting Kristiyano ay boboto ng tama at ayon sa konsensya sa May 9, 2022. Well, with apologies to those who are attending who might not be part of the Christian religion. I happen to be the president of the Catholic Bishops' Conference of the Philippines, and I am assuming that perspective of the Christian faith. So, number 1, boboto ng tama ayon sa konsensya. And I suppose even people of other communities of faith would respect that. No? Number 2, siya ay bukas ang isip na makinig, magsiyasat sa tama at totoo, magsikap na kumilatis sa dapat at hindi dapat paniwalaan sa mga nakukuhang impormasyon sa social media. Number 3, siya ay boboto para sa kandidatong magpapanatili at magpapatatag sa demokrasya ng bansa, susunod sa batas, at gagalang sa dangal at karapatan ng tao. Number 4, siya ay boboto para sa kandidatong magtatanggol sa mga teritoryo ng ating bansa, lalong-lalo na sa West Philippine Sea, sa isang matapang ngunit mapayapang pamamaraan. Number 5, siya ay boboto para sa kandidatong magtutuwid sa kultura at kalakaran ng korupsyon at katiwalian sa gobyerno. Number 6, siya ay boboto para sa kandidatong may tunay na paggalang at malasakit lalo na sa mga kababaihan. Number 7, siya ay boboto para sa kandidatong magpapalakas sa diwa ng partisipasyon ng mga mamamayan sa pamahalaan. Number 8, siya ay boboto para sa tunay na magtataguyod sa usaping pangkapayapaan sa pagitan ng gobyerno at ng mga rebelding grupo. Number 9, siya ay boboto para sa kandidatong may tunay na determinasyon na matigil na ang illegal gambling, ang illegal drug trade, ang illegal logging, ang illegal mining, at iba pang mga industriya na nakasisira sa ating kalikasan, sa kultura at mabuting pagpapahalaga ng mga Pilipino. Number 10, siya ay boboto para sa kandidatong may integridad, tumututoo, may isang salita, handang magsakripisyo, magtataguyod sa mabubuting programa ng mga nakaraang administrasyon at marunong pumili ng mga mahuhusay at matuwid na makakatrabaho sa gobyerno. Number 11, siya ay boboto para sa kandidatong magbibigay inspirasyon sa mga kabataan upang sila'y mangarap at maghangad na matupad ang kanilang mga pangarap, hindi lang para sa sarili, kundi para sa pamilya, para sa komunidad, para sa bayan. Number 12, siya ay boboto para sa kandidatong marunong makinig sa boses ng taong bayan, lalong-lalo na ng mga dukha, mga maliliit. Handang tumanggap ng pagkakamali. May paggalang sa kalayaan ng tao sa usaping pangrelihiyon at pananampalataya. Number 13, siya ay boboto para sa pinunong may pagmamalaki sa international community. Pinunong simple ngunit matalino. Pinunong disente at buo ang loob na manindigan para sa tama at totoo. Number 14, siya ay boboto para sa magpapatuloy sa tunay na diwa ng people power revolution na nag-restore ng demokrasya sa ating bansa. Siya ay hindi magpapadikta sa mga dayuhan o sa mga asindero at malalaking negosyante at magtataguyod sa kapakanan ng nakararami, lalo na ng mga nasa laylayan ng ating lipunan. At number 15, siya ay boboto para sa mga kandidatong tunay na makadiyos, makatao, makabayan, makakalikasan, at makabuhay. Maraming salamat po. Ito po si Bishop Ambo David, Bishop of the Diocese of Caloocan and President of the Catholic Bishops' Conference of the Philippines. May you have a grace-filled online forum. Thank you.
Maraming salamat po, Bishop Ambo. Tunay nga no, na mahalagang pumili at bumoto ng mga pinunong makakatulong sa ating bayan at mga pinunong may integridad. Maraming salamat po. So, moving on to our program, we would like to turn over the floor now to Professor Victor Andres Dindo Manhit, the president of the Strat-based Albert Del Rosario Institute. He is also the founder and managing director of the Strat-based Group and president of the policy think tank, the ADRi Institute. He is a leading strategist who has built winning public affairs campaigns, integrating message development, public relations, and the mobilization of grassroots support. So, Professor Dindo, the floor is yours.
Kim, thank you for introducing me. And of course, maraming salamat po kay Bishop Ambo David, who has been a champion of things which are very important and key to ensuring a strong democratic culture and tradition in Philippine society. Allow me to share our views with regards to Democracy Watch. It's been nearly 9 years since we started Democracy Watch as part of our program in the ADRi Institute in partnership with the different conveners through the years. But today, we would like to focus on what we call the Vote Right 2022. And it reminds me of what we have tracked in our institute. And what have we tracked? The past 6-7 months, we've been tracking issues important to Filipino voters. And it continues to be the same. And as late as January of 2022, we are in this pandemic, but it seems that this continuing health crisis is now really affecting our people's lives. I call it the economic consequences of the pandemic. We see high prices ng bilihin, sabi nga natin, presyo, trabaho at kita, kahirapan at gutom, but in between it is the issue of graft and corruption. And this is something that we saw not only this January, when we tracked this in a national survey, we saw it also in the result of our survey, even if the questions were different. When we asked, what are the issues that candidates for national position should focus on? Presyo ng bilihin, trabaho at kita, kahirapan, corruption, ay nandun pa rin sa gitna. Nais ko lang i-emphasize na even the defending the territories of the Philippines against China ay importante as the number one, higher even than public health issues as of last December. And we saw it again previous to this in our October survey, because that's part of our tradition in our stat-based ADRi Institute. We build our arguments, we build our advocacy based on data. And data is telling us what is in the hearts and the minds of the Filipino voters. So given these issues as important, we tend to ask ourselves, what can candidates offer to address these economic challenges for the Filipino people? Where do candidates stand based on issues of governance? How can we make people more make government transparent, accountable, and responsive? Actually, with regards to economics, I always ask myself, is that how can we have growth that creates jobs, not growth that we have seen through the years, which I call jobless growth. Gumiginhawa ekonomiya, pero patuloy ang kahirapan. Gumiginhawa ang ekonomiya, pero mukhang hirap ang tao. So, maaring kasagutan dito ay, what are we looking for? Maybe we're looking for a specific kind of candidate. So we started asking ourselves, what is the most important consideration in choosing a presidential candidate? And this is what the public tells us. General public, the voters. Untarnished character, reputation, and not corrupt. Has a clear program or platform of action. Has extensive experience in governance. When we saw these results, consistent with what we've been seeing, we ask ourselves, how come when we look at preferences, there seems to be a disconnect? When we look for candidates that will provide for us a clear program or platform of action that will deal with these economic challenges, that will deal and stand up for the interests of the Filipino people in West Philippine Sea, that will stand up and ensure that funds from government will not be misused or abused. Who is this candidate? Who are these candidates? But the reality is, we are suffering since 2016 what I call a pandemic of disinformation. Today's social media space is infected with the pandemic of disinformation, perpetuated by forces who need to distort historical facts. And it's quite sad that our proud tradition of news that came about really after EDSA 1 that we are celebrating this week is about the power of media to raise issues, to make things right. But what we're seeing is that data also tells us that as news spreads to the country, it's not only limited to TV, especially with the loss of ABS-CBN. Now it's GMA7, now it's TV5. The rest, basically, are small players. But what we noticed last December was the rise of the internet. And the danger with the internet is there's no editorial fact-checking discipline. And we have seen how the internet even has become a most influential source of information during this election, running second after national TV station at 19%. Historically, if we will track it to past two presidential elections, it has not played that important role. Look at the percentage of how information was influenced by the internet. How the dominant was always radio, TV, then maybe radio. But in this case, the internet. And the pandemic created this reality for us. We spend so much time in the internet. Second in the world, according to this latest January 2022 international study. And we have even risen from 89 million last year, which shocked us as we tracked this in our institute, to even 92.1 million. Sad is the internet, which is very important as we shift a digital-ready Philippines, a digital lifestyle that will open up a lot of possibilities for Filipinos young and old, is now being used for disinformation. In Democracy Watch, we argue the truth must be told. It must be told again and again, so it does not drown in the well-funded deluge of lies and disinformation. Imagine what kind of governance will come out of an election marked by disinformation. That's why we believe voter education today must combat disinformation with untiring passion and resolve. We need to raise the issue of the importance of a government, an elected set of leaders that will address economic challenges of hunger and poverty, jobs and better wages, to address the perennial high cost of living in our country, issues of governance, corruption, transparency, and accountability. Sa Pilipino, pananagutan. Kailangan managot. Panagutin ang mga nagnanakaw ng pera ng bayan. And lastly, kailangan natin ng mga namumuno na paninindigan ang interes ng Pilipino, ng mangingisda, lalong-lalo na sa West Philippine Sea. We need to protect our territorial integrity and our maritime rights. And that is what we want this program, our voter education program, to achieve. And we will continue to speak out for the truth amidst this disinformation. Again, good morning and thank you. We had, I think, at least 1,100 registrants. Hopefully they can participate the whole morning with us today.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Dindo. That was very insightful. Indeed, disinformation is a problem that we truly need to address in this day and age. So moving forward, our first speaker of the panel, I am pleased to introduce to you Ms. Myla Villanueva, of the chairperson of the Parish Pastoral Council for Responsible Voting. She will be talking about volunteerism and protecting the vote. Ms. Myla is also the founder of 5 startup companies and is currently the chairman of MDI Group, a leading digital transformation partner and technology innovator in the Philippines. She is also a founding trustee in Go Negosyo, from a nonprofit board promoting the entrepreneurship culture amongst the youth. So, Ms. Myla, please, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Dindo. And good morning to all of you. I'm here to speak today about PPCRV. And I need to share some slides, please. So for some of you who may not know who PPCRV is, I'd like to say that PPCRV is a national political but non-partisan lay movement that works assiduously for clean, honest, accurate, meaningful, and peaceful elections. Next slide, please. And in essence, it's very complex. Next slide, please. Piece of work, and we do have church volunteers, people who come from the parishes, but also welcome many denominations. We work with the Commission on Election as an accredited party. We also have the media that we cater to inform the public. And of course, we need to be very involved in technology, it being we have one of the largest technical elections in the world, in fact. So we like to say that we work again for clean, honest, accurate, meaningful, and peaceful elections. That is what we call CHAMP. But at the heart of our work are really the volunteers. They come in all ways to be helpful before and during and after the elections. And they come on foot, on boat, on horse, in any way possible in order to serve their mission. And in 2022, just to discuss the scale of our elections, we will have up to 18,000 posts that you will be voting for in both national and local. So it is a rather large election with 65.7 million voters that we are sort of registered for. We normally have a turnout of 71%, and they come to 106,174 clustered precincts and 37,000 voting centers. So the scale is rather large. So we are accredited by the COMELEC for the following work. We conduct voters education and registration. We are also part of a voters assistance desk. I think when you go to your precincts, you see a desk where you can find your precincts, especially at the time of pandemic. It's important to get in and out of the voting center immediately. We also conduct poll watching and an unofficial parallel count. And I'll speak a little bit about this. I'm sure you see our workers or our volunteers that conduct the poll watching. We have also conducted registration campaigns to encourage especially first-time voters to come and participate in our elections. Voters' education revolve around some of the values that Bishop Ambo had discussed. For our young people and first-time voters, in essence, there are 16 values enshrined in our Constitution. And these values revolve around being makadiyos, makatao, makabayan, and makakalikasan. And if it is being asked of us to be good citizens with these values, it is essentially even more important that our candidates embody the same values to lead us. So we talk in various formats aside from social media. We also try to reach our voters that have no internet access. It's still important. for them to be aware of a discernment process, and of course the thought process around sources of information and trusted sources of information, especially around this day of disinformation. It's also important for us that people still believe in their democratic process. And through time, there's quite a lot of talk about the automated election system. And especially for, again, the young and new voters, we like to share information and come up with many series and information campaigns to introduce you to how our automated election system works from a technical point of view. So we do have experts, the best minds in the industry, in fact, in a series talking about what is a VCM, how does transmission work, how is your vote, how are your votes counted, and how are they protected. Again, important that we should trust our system, but PPCRV is also here to verify the technology for the public. A big part of our work and critical to the credibility of the elections, it's what we call the unofficial parallel count. Again, we are legally empowered by the COMELEC to do this. Let me speak a little bit about that. This is, everybody knows what a VCM looks like. And at the beginning of the closing of the polls, that is, we're having our polls now from 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock in the evening. At closing time, our volunteers pick up the 4th copy of the election return. There are 8 copies that are printed prior to the transmission of the VCM of the data to the COMELEC. So we pick up the 4th copy of the returns before a transmission occurs. Next slide. So let me step back and tell you what happens when your vote counting machine transmits the count of your precinct, meaning there are about 800 voters who vote in one VCM. And upon the closing, again, of the polls, the information is sent to 3 servers. The first one is the National Board of Canvassers. That is traditionally at the PICC and belongs with the COMELEC as they canvass the votes. There's also the central server, where this server makes available to the public the results in near real time in the COMELEC web pages. And the transparency server, which is in essence assigned to the PPCRV and the kapisanan ng mga broadcasters ng Pilipinas. So as you can see, the VCMs, and imagine the scale, please, of 106,000 VCMs transmitting on election night. So it is a massive effort, but all that data is spread through various ways. So there's a good amount of transparency and duplication, in fact, of the count. So what happens to that transparency server is each VCM's data is shared with us and canvassed, consolidated, and is shared as well with the majority political party, the minority political party, and the main media agencies and outlets, in order that in near real time, this is shared with the public. So let me step back and let you get an idea of what's happening here. As our volunteers pick up the election returns across the nation in 106,000 places on election night, these physical pieces of paper are then sent to the command center of the PPCRV. It, of course, comes at various times of the evening, the day after, and in the next week. And if you can imagine, the VCM also sends the electronic copies through the various servers I discussed, and it is in the PPCRV command center that we match this to. Next slide. So here are pictures of the command center, and here I am encoding along with 200 volunteers a day. It's fascinating work. You're seeing the voice of the people from all over the country as they come in. We encode each ER twice to make sure that it matches the electronic copy that is sent by the VCM to the 3 servers. So the work essentially that we are doing here is to ensure that no dagdag bawas is happening. The young people may not remember this, but in the days of manual, wholesale cheating was happening in the canvassing where 2,000 votes adding a 0 becomes 20,000, or sometimes they would remove from one candidate and add to another in very big fashion when things are canvassed. So our work here is to ensure that the votes are not changing as the VCM transmits to the various servers. So just as a report to the public, in 2019, there were approximately, if I remember right, 87,000 machines at that time. And we were able to encode 60,000. We don't usually do encoding for the whole amount because we need to stop at a big count, though. I mean, it's statistically very significant already because we cannot proclaim candidates. We leave that to the COMELEC. But again, the importance of this data is that we match 99.995% of the ERs against the electronic returns. So you're seeing that really no dagdag bawas is happening. This has been a same percentage, high percentage since 2010. So we're happy to tell the public that the transmission has been very safe. So I'm sharing more pictures. This is our command center in Pope Pius. We are now moving to the UST. Please come and volunteer. It's next slide. It's really a happy time, you know, to be a volunteer. But aside from the command center, we also have volunteers. We just completed the source code review. Some 67 members of political parties, our own volunteers, really read through the source code of the elections to ensure that it is supposed to do what we aimed it to do. Ballot printing is happening. We're watching that. This is difficult work and we need volunteers. You know, people talk about the shipping company and, you know, how there's quite a lot of question about how well that would go. Well, we're going to be in the hub of the shipping company and also in the hubs of the COMELEC as it gets shipped across the country. Our volunteers see to it that the seals are intact before and after it leaves. Poll watching, we will need 106,000 times 2. We're about 350,000 volunteers now, but we aim to be at 500,000 to man our voters' assistance desks and of course collect the ER. Next slide. I will skip this, but basically there's a lot of work and we need you. And also it's of all denominations, the BARM and in the South, we have our Muslim brothers and sisters, as you can see, participating because it is everyone's election. So we welcome all faiths. And here are some preparations that are happening in mock elections. And in 2019, it is the year of the youth and we had strong participation. We also believe that once you are a volunteer, you appreciate and learn to care more about our fragile democracy. And it's very meaningful. I was a volunteer and continue to be a volunteer to this day because of the experiences of being a PPCRV volunteer. So please come and join us. Again, prior slide, please. It's fun. You know, it's barkadahan. So, I mean, bring your friends, either volunteer at the command center or volunteer at your nearest parish. There will be a coordinator for PPCRV there, or they can point you to the nearest coordinator. So with that, I pass it on again, and thank you very much for for having me here. Please come volunteer for the love of God and country. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Myla. That was a nice talk, Onna. Thank you for showing us the value of volunteering. Interestingly enough, actually, I had also volunteered as a student for PPCRV in 2013 and 2016 at the command center, and it was a very fun experience. So for the students here from the different universities and colleges and schools, do think about volunteering for PPCRV also and helping out where and when you can. So moving forward, we have with us from the Legal Network for Truthful Elections, Attorney Onna, the Executive Director. So Lente is the first and only nonpartisan nationwide network of lawyers, law students, paralegals, and grassroots volunteers engaged to do election work. So to talk about knowing our rights as voters and other pertinent concerns of the elections, we have Attorney Caritas. I turn the floor over to you.
Hi, good morning, Kim. Good morning to all our
Morning.
participants in the Zoom room this morning, to the 400 plus participants in the Zoom room this morning. Good morning to Professor Dindo. Good morning to our colleagues at Democracy Watch. Good morning, Miss Myla, to our friends at PPCRV. And probably good morning as well to Director James. Mamaya siguro he'll be presenting or making his VCM demo. So thank you to Democracy Watch for giving us and for giving me and Lente this opportunity to talk about our rights as voters. Controversial, especially with what has happened the past few weeks. Let's talk about what are our rights during the campaign period and during election period. So let me share my screen now. Pasensya na. Papago-bago yung direction of screen ko. Okay. So for the next 10 minutes, I'll be talking about until 9:50. Hopefully, I'll be just until 9:50. I promise my friends from Democracy Watch that not go overtime. Promise yan. Prof. Indo and Kim.
Thank you.
All right. So if
No
any
worries.
questions, if you have any questions, please see our Q&A function. You can see the Q&A function button that screen of the channel if you have any question. Okay, so again, good morning to everyone. Maganda umaga po sa ating lahat. I am Attorney Onna Caritos. You can call me Onna. I'm the Executive Director of Lente, or Legal Network for Truthful Elections. And kung ang PPCRV may champ, ang Lente naman merong atin ng eleksyon. So since 2013, we have been using the hashtag atin ng eleksyon. And atin, it stands for something. Ang mga Pilipino mahilig sa initials, but ang atin, it stands for accountability, transparency, inclusiveness, and if you combine all these three standards, it leads to inspiring national public confidence in the election results. Kaya siya atin. Kaya siya hashtag atin ng eleksyon. Kung itatranslate nyo naman directly to English, at kung hindi nyo alam ano ibig sabihin ng atin or malimutan nyo na anong sinabi ko, pwede nyo naman tingnan sarili nyo. Ano ba ibig sabihin pag sinasabi natin atin ng eleksyon? Masasabi ba natin atin ng eleksyon kapag pera ang nagdidikta kung sino ang iboboto ng mga tao? Hindi yan atin, sa kanila yung eleksyon na yon. Masasabi natin ng eleksyon kung ang tumatakbo lagi sa eleksyon ay mga pare-parehong pangalan. O kakagaling ko lang sa Davao and I heard from colleagues and sa mga kaibigan at kapartner natin sa Bangsamoro na maraming lugar sa Bangsamoro na wala nang tumatakbo or unopposed, basically ang mga kandidato. So, ibig sabihin, isa lang yung pwedeng bumoto sa kanila, panalo na siya. So masasabi ba natin hashtag atin ng election when we have elections which are not competitive, when we have elections na parang referendum na lang ang lalabas kasi hindi na kailangan bumoto para manalo. So that's the meaning of atin ang election. When you forget what A, T, I, and N stands for, you just ask yourself kung ito yung nangyayari kung ang bagay na ito ay nangyayari, can we say atin ang election? And for this election, for the 2022 national and local elections, we added another letter to the hashtag. So we added S. So ngayon hindi na siya atin, kundi sa atin ng election. And S stands for safe, for a safe national, safe 2022 national and local elections. My internet is low. I'll turn off my video so that you will not get distracted by my, my slow motion face. Okay. So we added S to the hashtag because we want a safe elections this coming May. Because as we all know and we've all experienced this the past 2 years, to the students inside the Zoom room this morning, malamang marami pa rin sa inyo ang online at kakunti pa lang yung nakapag-pilot ng face-to-face. So our elections will still be conducted during a pandemic. So we want a safe elections. And hopefully in our discussion in the next few minutes, you can help out in your own little ways. Hindi kailangan laging malaki kasi there's always a tendency for people to always think big or dapat malaki agad yung ginagawa to have impact. But remember, impact always starts with the little things that we do for our friends, for our family, and for our community. And hopefully, my talk or my presentation in the next 6 minutes I will be able to share some of you things that you can do to help out in your own as circles of engagement with your family, your friends, your neighbors. Okay, nabanggit ko na ang lente at masyado na matagal kung pag-iusapan ko pa ang Lente. But Lente is a legal organization. We are composed of lawyers, law students, paralegals, and other trained volunteers engaged to do election work. But we're not limited, we're not exclusive to the legal profession. So if you're interested to know more about election laws, to know more, to deep dive into the election legal processes and guidelines, please do check out our different online accounts. Present kami in Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, and just recently we launched our TikTok account. Just search Lente Philippines, and in our TikTok account we aim to simplify and laymanize some of the electoral issues that are cropping up or that we have encountered for the past few weeks. For example, yung sa Operation Bakla, saan ba dapat maglagay ng poster? So you can check out our TikTok account if you want to see ano ba yung sagot sa kung saan ba dapat naglalagay ng poster. Okay. Wala na kasi kung oras. So voter rights. So when we talk about voter rights or rights of voters, please memorize in your heart Article 25 of ICCPR, or the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. This is an international instrument that we are a party to, that we signed as a party to, that basically outlines our rights as voters and our rights as candidates if we want to take part in the elections, not only as voters but also as candidates. Basahin ko lang. Every citizen shall have the right and the opportunity without any of the distinctions mentioned in Article 2 and without unreasonable restrictions to take part in the conduct of public affairs directly or through freely chosen representatives, to vote and to be elected at genuine periodic elections, which shall be by universal and equal suffrage and shall be held by secret ballot, guaranteeing the free expression of the will of the electors, and to have access on general terms of equality to public service in his or her country. Okay, so that's Article 5. So this basically outlines our rights as voters, our rights as candidates or electors, as that is the term in the international arena for candidates. Sometimes they use electors, and our right as our rights as citizens to public service, to equal public service in our country. But for our purpose today, let us talk about voting, our right when we vote, and our rights when we campaign. When we campaign for a particular candidate or when we campaign for a particular political party or party list. So ngayong araw, pag-uusapan natin ano ba yung mga karapatan natin pag bumoboto at pag boboto, and ano ba yung mga karapatan natin when we choose to do more aside from voting. Kasi madalas ang ating experience in the elections is voting, volunteering to be part of PPCRV, NAMFRE, LENTE, for example, as observers, monitors. But in this election, at nakakatuwa to at hindi masama to, we see a lot of young people doing more aside from voting, volunteering as citizen watchdog, actually campaigning for a particular candidate, for particular political parties and party list groups. So let's talk about our rights. If we are campaigning for a candidate, ano ba yung mga dapat nating tandaan at ano ba yung mga dapat nating hindi gawin? Okay. Let's talk about voting. And the right to vote is enshrined in our 1987 Philippine Constitution. And you should remember that the right to vote is a protected right. So hindi pwedeng hindi ka makaboto unless you don't meet the basic qualifications provided for in our Constitution. And what are the basic qualifications for you to exercise your right to vote or for you to vote in our elections? One, you should be at least 18 years of age o dapat ikaw ay 18 years old. So marami sa atin siguro dito, sa 400 plus dito, marami sa inyo ay 18 na. So under the Constitution, you are allowed to vote in the elections. But remember, in the SK, the age to vote, it starts with 15. Kasi yung youth age range natin is from 15 to 30 years old. So yung 18 is for the national and local elections. What are the other basic requirements? Siyempre, dapat nakatira ka sa Pilipinas, or you should be a resident of the Philippines for at least 1 year, and in the place that you intend to vote in for at least 6 months. Okay, basic requirements. Age, residency. And nakalagay rin sa Constitution natin that no literacy, property, or other substantive requirements should be imposed on the exercise of suffrage. Naisip nyo na ba kung paano bumoboto yung hindi marunong magbasa at magsulat? Can our Congress impose that the qualification of being able to read and write should be a requirement, should be met by an individual for him or her to exercise his or her right to vote? Hindi pwede yon. That's unconstitutional. Tatandaan natin yan na, because that's a literacy requirement on the exercise of suffrage. Kaya nga, yung mga hindi marunong magbasa at magsulat under our legal framework, they are allowed to have assistors. Kung hindi niyo napapansin or para dun sa mga nakaboto na, may mga tao sa Pilipinas na hindi marunong magbasa at magsulat at para makaboto sila, mayroong bumoboto para sa kanila. At ito nga yung tinatawag nating assistor. Also remember, bawal yung property requirement kasi may mga proposals in the past na dapat daw ang mga bumoto na lang ay yung mga nakakapagbayad ng tax or yung nakakapag-file ng ITR. If Congress decides to pass a law based on property, adding a property requirement on our exercise of the right of suffrage, again, that's unconstitutional. So remember that. Secretary, please, can I have an extra 4 minutes? Kim?
Yes, sure. Not a problem.
Okay. So, moving forward with my discussion. So, when we vote, hindi lang pagboto yon. When we talk about free and fair elections, it's not only about the freedom to vote. It's not only having the knowledge or the information how to cast a vote. Paano bumoto? Basic. Lagi yan naman ang tinuturo sa voters education. How to vote. Siguro ilang beses nyo na narinig doon sa mga nakaboto in previous automated elections, yung paano maghugis ng bilog na hugis, paano shade ng bilog na hugis itlog. Lagi natin narinig yan. And that's part of having free and fair elections. But having free and fair elections is not only having the freedom to vote, not only having the knowledge on how to cast a vote or paano bumoto. Free and fair elections also entails voters having adequate information or making informed choices. That's why we have a problem with misinformation and disinformation. Because when voters are bombarded with disinformation, and voters are not given other opportunities or other platforms to gain another perspective or to correct yung information at sa tingin nila tama, how can voters vote freely and fairly? Eh yung information na meron sila ay mali. Pero ang tingin nila ay tama. So part of having free and fair elections is voters should have access to adequate information para makaboto sila ng may sustansya or inform yung pagboto nila. That's why, one of the innovations, and I think Director James will be discussing this, one of the important innovations COMELEC did to address the problem of mobility, especially during the campaign period for candidates. Siyempre, dahil may COVID pa, yung usual na pangangampanya na lahat tayo ay sanay, that will not happen. Although we've seen a lot of footages of national candidates violating the health protocols left and right for in-person campaign activities of COMELEC. But supposedly, yung usual na kampanya na nakikita natin where most people get their information about the candidates, hindi yan mangyayari. What COMELEC did was to introduce the ADRi Facebook page. Itong ADRi Facebook page na to ay nagsimula na gawin ni COMELEC starting the first day of the campaign period, which is February 8 for national candidates. At iyan ay para sa mga national candidates every night, walang palya at 7 p.m. You will see all the national candidates from president, vice president, senator, and party list. May mga naka-schedule na may recorded video sila. Showcasing their platforms, their plans of action. What's important actually, kasi bombarded naman tayo with the plans and programs of the president. What's important that we need to watch every night is the portion or the section on the party list groups. The party list groups running in the elections. Kasi this is the first time that we'll be seeing all party list groups running in the elections have a space, a definite space and platform for them to introduce their programs of action. Remember, ang party list ay congressman, congresswoman natin. Isa siyang representative which enjoys all the benefits, all the rights of being a district representative. Yun nga lang, party list representative siya. So please, as voters, kung ngayon nyo lang narinig itong COMELEC ADRi Facebook page, please tell your friends, your family, your neighbors. Maging mabait kayo ng marites sa inyong mga kaibigan and tell them about this COMELEC ADRi Facebook page. So what's new on election day? On election day, parehas lang naman eh. May VCM tayo na makikita, na magsishade tayo ng bilog na hugis itlog. But what you need to do and to expect on election day is you need to wear your face mask. There's still a requirement of face shield on election day, the use of face shield, but parang pinag-uusapan na yan sa COMELEC and probably later we can be updated by Director James on this, on the requirement of face shield na baka tanggalin na yan kasi hindi na naman ginagamit sa ngayon. So all voters are mandated to still wear face mask on election day. And ito, dapat gawin nyo na to if you have the opportunity to check in advance where you will vote on election day, your precinct number, your sequence number, your classroom, please do so. Wag na kayong sasabay doon sa mga tao on election day na pipila doon sa nabanggit nga ni Ms. Myla na Voters Assistance Desk. Because we've seen in previous voting simulations na kapag nagsabay-sabay ang mga tao doon sa Voters Assistance Desk, that would contribute to more time spent by people inside the voting centers. Ang gusto natin on election day, ang MO natin, mission objective, in and out tayo sa voting center on election day. But if we don't know our precinct and sequence number the day before the elections or in advance, pipila tayo dun sa voters assistance desk, sana yung voters assistance desk na yan, ibigay na lang natin dun sa mga taong walang oportunidad, walang panahon na hanapin kung saan sila boboto. Ito yung mga nagtatrabaho araw-araw. Wala silang panahon na pumunta sa opisina ng COMELEC to check out their precinct and sequence number. So sa mga kabataan ngayon na nandito, or to all individuals who have that opportunity and the extra time, pwede nyo nang malaman yung inyong precinct and sequence number in advance bago pa mag-araw na election. And you can do that for your friends, for your family members, and your neighbors. Again, maging magaling at mabait tayong marites sa isa't isa para makatulong tayo to COMELEC, to our electoral board members, to the DESO, to our PPCRV volunteers present in the voting centers na hindi na tayo makadagdag dun sa trabaho. Okay. Next, so itong voting process, you will have an access to this presentation. You will be given a copy of this presentation. But titignan nyo yung picture, I hope you see the pictures clearly. At the entrance of the voting center, may temperature check. So parang pagpasok natin sa mga building ngayon, we need the person in charge at the entrance of the voting center, kukunin yung temperature mo. And if you register a high temperature, for example, 37.5. So if you register a high temperature, 37.5 ng dalawang beses, hindi ka papauwiin. Remember that. Ikaw ay boboto doon sa tinatawag na IPP, Isolation Polling Place.
Attorney Onna, sorry to cut you, but I think we're running out of time po. Is it okay if you wrap up na po soon?
Sige,
Thank
I'll go
you.
to my last slide. Kim. Last slide. I just want to talk about campaign. Because right now, there is an issue about raising funds for candidates. Last year, a lot of groups and individuals put up crowdfunding platforms or crowdfunding initiatives for certain candidates. And there was an issue on whether or not they could do such initiative. Second, how about yung actual campaign, yung Operation Backlash? Ano ba yung rule on Operation Backlash? Is private property still covered or can still be regulated by COMELEC? Okay, what you need to know is that our legal framework is not that responsive actually to what's happening now, to the developments in our election campaign. Tandaan nyo that the Omnibus Election Code was passed. It's older than our 1987 Constitution. The Fair Election Act was passed 30 years ago. So yung mga nangyayari ngayon na crowdfunding, it was not part of the discussion when the Fair Election Act was passed. Yung mga movements ngayon na mga tao talaga, yung nagkakandidato for particular candidates and groups, that was not envisioned by our legal framework. So urgent thing to do after the elections, revise our legal framework to adapt and for it to be responsive, to be more responsive to what's happening. But as to Operation Backlash or yung pagpuput up, paglalagay ng posters in the Diocese of Bacolod versus COMELEC case, may dalawang nuance kasi as to election paraphernalia. Election paraphernalia which amounts to an advocacy, and election paraphernalia which amounts to campaigning for a candidate. Kapag advocacy yung election paraphernalia, yan ay hindi pwedeng i-control or i-regulate ni COMELEC. That's our exercise of freedom of expression. Yan yung ang pag-drawing mo ay ano lang, kunyari mag-drawing ka ng environment tapos may ballot box. So you're saying vote for the environment in this election. So that's an advocacy. And for example, the size regulation, it would not it should not be applied in your case. But if you are using, for example, a poster, you are using election paraphernalia which can be treated as an as campaigning for a candidate, doon mako-cover ni COMELEC. Kaya yung mga posters in private properties, dapat mag-follow siya doon sa 2x3. Yung mga posters na may vote for a certain candidate, vote for a certain political party, that falls under election paraphernalia, campaigning for a particular candidate. So in that case, COMELEC can really regulate as to the size and location. So dapat, but there is a recognition that our legal framework really is not that responsive to what's happening right now. So, but remember, there are certain rights, yung pag put up ng poster, that's still allowed, but you need to conform with the size requirement. If your poster is made direct na sinasabing vote for a candidate or vote for a political party, that's a campaign, a poster which is campaigning for a particular candidate. So remember, kailangan mag-comply yan with our rules in the Fair Election Act. You can find out more about the Diocese of Bacolod versus COMELEC case because we issued out a statement as to the nuances. So may ganung discussion in our different platforms, so you can just check out that statement. So that's the end of my presentation. Pasensya na, Kim, I overextended my time again.
No
Pasensya na po
worries,
sa ating mga kasama. Thank you very
Thank
much
you.
to Democracy Watch for this opportunity and platform.
Thank you, Attorney Onna. Marami kayong nabanggit na talagang impactful. I just wanted to note a few things. First, sadly, Director Jimenez can't make it today due to prior or more urgent concerns, but he did send us a video that we will be playing later. Second thing is you noted that, yeah, when voters are given this information, how can voters vote freely and fairly? Yung information na meron sila ay mali. And I think that is the perfect transition into our next speaker, Dr. Rachel Can, the program coordinator of Check.ph. She is also a journalism professor and the associate dean at the College of Mass Communication of the University of the Philippines, Diliman. She is an award-winning journalist as well. She will discuss fact-checking for the elections and other such matters. So, Dr. Can, the floor is yours now. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone in the panel and in the Zoom room. Thank you for inviting me here at the launch of the Democracy Watch. Ma'am Myla, I was also a PPCRV volunteer in the past, and I used to bring my NSTP class with me. So buong class kami nag-volunteer sa PCRV. And it is fun. We did have fun. So I agree with your talk na fun siya. And I hope more teachers here in the audience will think of bringing their class as well, because it is a something memorable also. But you know, since 2019, I have shifted my volunteerism to fact-checking dahil naging bagong front lines ang paglaban sa fake news. Kaya if I may share my screen, I shall talk about, and I was asked to talk about the value of fact-checking ngayong halalan 2022. Oops. Okay. Ang sabi nga ni this Nazi officer or propagandist Joseph Goebbels had said, repeat a lie often enough and it will become the truth. Unfortunately, ito nga yung nangyayari, or ito yung nagiging motto ng mga nagkakalat ng disinformation. When we talk about the information disorder, this is what's happening. You have basically three types. No? Misinformation, ito yung unintentional pagkakamali minsan ng media natin sa pag-report, or minsan hindi nila kasalanan dahil yung mismong source nila yung nagsisinungaling at na-report nila kunyari yung press conference na mali pala yung sinasabi. So that's what we call misinformation. Ang talagang may mali siya, yung tinatawag na disinformation, kasi ito ay fabricated at deliberately manipulative information na talagang ang aim niya ay manggulo or magsinungaling. And then you have malinformation. This is disinformation that's released. Kung baga may timing siya para manira talaga ng reputasyon ng tao. Or minsan institusyon ang sinisiraan nila. What we have to keep in mind is that this information is created and planned. Hindi ito spontaneous act. Meron talagang nag-iisip ng mga sinungaling, may nag-iisip ng ways of spreading wrong information, and then they have a production line. So somebody thinks about it or conceptualizes it, has a design team to actually look at the best way to present the disinformation, either through, let's say, a social influencer, or sometimes through a meme, or sometimes through a press conference. So there are many ways that they spread it. And then the distribution. The distribution, there are certain platforms that they use, like YouTube and Facebook, where they first put the disinformation. Tapos noon, napipick up ng kanilang networks o yung mga fan base nila, tapos kumakalat na. Ang napansin din namin sa check.ph ay minsan yung authors ng disinformation, as soon as it's redistributed, when it's kumalat na sa internet, tinatanggal nila yung original post para hindi namin mahanap din kung saan nanggaling yung disinformation. There are many types of disinformation, and if you're interested in knowing more about these types of disinformation, I had put up a Facebook, not Facebook, but rather a YouTube lecture on disinformation. But just to, these are the basic types, no? And I'll give examples of a few because we don't have time, but these are the most common types of disinformation, especially during these elections. For example, satire or parody, na minsan dapat naman talaga na nakakatawa lang siya. All right, so there's no intention to cause harm, but there's a potential to fool. Unfortunately, yung what is, for example, featured in a spoof or a satire website is used by those who manipulate information as disinformation, especially since kunyari yung mobile natin, naka-free mobile, hindi na pick up yung source. For example, kung galing Adobo Chronicles, alam mo nang nakakatawa siya dapat. Pero ang ginagawa nila, tinatanggal nila yung source of information tapos magmumukhang totoo. No? So for example, itong nakakatawa na to, itong Sandro Marcos Only is a spoof site on Facebook where they're making a ridiculous post, but then may naniniwala pa rin, no? Kahit na papatawa lang. Misleading content as well, no? It's misleading use of information to frame an issue or individual. So madalas dito, ang ginagawa nila, mini-misquote nila yung kandidato, no? Putting words in their mouth, or sometimes taking out of context yung talagang sinabi ng kandidato, pero they will take it out of context and reinterpret it in a different way na hindi naman yun yung talagang pagsabi ng kandidato. So this is also a very, very common way of spreading this information. And then false context. No? When genuine content is shared with false contextual information. No? So for example, totoo siyang quote. Totoo itong quote nito kay Bishop Fulton Sheen. Pero of course, he's not talking about Philippine elections, especially in 2022 dahil namatay na siya noong 1979. No, pero ang kumakalat na ngayon niya sinabi. So may mga ganito, yung mga patay na binubuhay uli. Then of course, manipulated content. This is again a very common thing. In general, all social media-based polls or surveys are manipulated content since they are not scientific in method and can be influenced by algorithms. So basically, there are two ways that it's manipulative. No? First, algorithms. Kasi pag lumabas sa isang network, usually, magkakaibigan kayo, pare-pareho kayo ng pag-iisip, doon lang sa inyo lumalabas yung poll. So it will appear that yun na yung worldview, pero actually view lang ng grupo mo. The other thing that I noticed sometimes in the polls is that yung sinasama nila sa isang, for example, pie chart, yung poll na ginawa nila sa Twitter, yung poll nila na ginawa nila sa Facebook, tapos isasama nila yung result sa isang pie chart na syempre hindi naman siya tugma or dapat ipagsama kasi iba yung audience, pwedeng pareho yung audience actually ng Twitter tsaka Facebook. Tapos pinagsama mo, double counting yon o minsan triple counting pa. At pwede rin kasi yung audience nun ay all from the same party or all from the same network. So it's very, very unscientific. So huwag tayo masyadong maniwala dito sa mga surveys na to. Always go to the yung mga survey companies na established na run by statisticians. No? So yun lang dapat yung paniwalaan natin. And then we have to develop a fact-checking state of mind. No? So we have to beware of memes. For example, this is the most common, again, si Abraham Lincoln, binuhay uli. Ito yung pinaka-common na ginagamit kasi pag pinost, it's not searchable because it's posted as an image. So kung makalat na kaming mga fact-checkers, hindi namin kaagad na nakikita kasi hindi mo makita yung meta tags niya. No? So sometimes nakatago yung meta tags, meanwhile kumakalat na yung fake news kasi it comes out, we cannot read the text, no? Kasi nga image yung file niya. So ito yung palagi nilang ginagawa for candidates putting words in their mouth or creating false information using imagery. And then of course the trolls, no? Alam natin na troll farms are real. Some of them are based abroad, but their interventions are local. No? Ang troll ay isang tao or isang kumpanya who starts quarrels, upsets people, distracts, so discord, either pinapagalit kayo or tries to interfere in the public sphere. No? So imbes na it's a democratic space, it becomes a very violent space. No? In fact, many journalists, many of my colleagues have experienced being attacked by trolls. No? So that the point or what they're trying to do is to intimidate them so that they don't bring out the truth. No? So kung nakahalata tayo na may troll dun sa exchange na pinasukan natin, no, don't feed them, don't argue with them, flag them. No? Pinakamaganda ay tanggalin na natin sila sa internet. No? So of course, babalik yan, pero if more of us flag them, at least no, meron tayong contribution sa pag-alis nila. To flag them, it's simply if you go to the, for example, it's a Facebook troll and you realize that it's probably not even a real person, you can go to the profile page, click that there's 3 dots underneath the cover image, and you will find the word find support or report profile, and then it will tell you, click on that and it will tell you what to do. And how to report a fake Facebook account or an offensive account. And then it's the best thing to do is to go only to credible sources. So we have to have that habit of going to fact checkers, and Google actually has a search engine for fact checkers. No? It's called Fact Check Explorer. Hanapin nyo lang. Dito sa Fact Check Explorer is different from the normal search engine dahil ang fact check, pumupunta siya kagad dun sa mga fact checking sites, no? Dun sa verified. Ang maganda dito sa Google Fact Check Explorer ay pumupunta lang siya dun sa mga fact checkers na verify na ng Google at saka ng International Fact-Checking Network na ito ay mga totoong fact-checker, at I'm sorry to say na may mga fake fact-checker din na nagkukunwaring fact-checker sila pero hindi naman sila totoo or actually propagandist din sila. No? So mas maganda ay pumunta tayo dito sa Fact Check Explorer at dito natin i-type kung anong gusto nating or ang tanong natin or anong gusto nating pa-fact check. At kung mayroon nang gumawa ng fact check na yon, mahanap siya ni Google. Yon. So ito yung address niya dito sa baba, toolbox.google.com/factcheck/explorer, or simply search Fact Check Explorer. And then, of course, ito ang check.ph. Ito yung aming initiative since 2019 dahil nga nakita namin na marami talagang mga disinformation na lumalabas. So, sa UP Journalism Department, kasi pumunta kami sa isang conference sa Singapore na tinatawag Trusted Media Summit, where we found that there were in other countries like Indonesia, Mexico, they had a very, very good effort in collaborating, fact checkers collaborating with each other. No? So imbes na isang fact checker ka lang, no, if we collaborate, then we can address a greater number of fake news. So nung bumalik kami dito, inumpisahan namin to we initiated it in 2019. Initially, we only had 13 members. In 2019, we had a collaboration of universities and media, and there were 13 partners. Ngayong 2022, I am happy to say na 34 partners ang sumali sa check.ph. So mas maraming mata na tumitingin sa mga disinformation. Now, one way of checking or making sure that you are in a verified site is look for the blue check. No, so marami sa mga social media platforms, actually Twitter, Viber, Facebook, and even YouTube, what they do is after they have vetted or they have audited a certain site, kung nakita nila na truthful yung information or na linalagay nitong site na to, linalagyan nila ng blue check. So, katulad dito, hinighlight ko po dito sa slide ko yung Facebook account ng check.ph. So, itong blue check na to, makikita nyo sa tabi ng pangalan ng nung site na yon. At ang ibig sabihin nito ay na-verify na po yung account na yon at pwede nyong i-trust. No? It's a trustworthy site. It's also been verified by the Viber group. So pag nakita niyo po yung aming, mag-join kayo ng community namin, and here are the addresses in the slide, you will see that it's a verified account as well as in Twitter. So it's a fast way also of checking if the information you are getting is correct or not. May search engine din kami na if you want to look for a particular disinformation, mahanap nyo din yung totoong data or yung totoong impormasyon. So yun. So with that, so the types of disinformation, these are my sources. And for more information, you can also visit my YouTube page where I have other materials on this battle we are facing against disinformation. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Khan. That was very informative po, and I think it's very helpful for the students here as well who are learning more how to navigate trolls and disinformation online. So some points we're learning so far from our speakers. First is volunteer. We have a way to help. Actually, even if you're not 18 yet, by the time May 9 comes around, you can still participate in elections by means of volunteering. So you can also be a good marites nga, and know your rights as voters. And don't feed the troll, but develop a fact-checking state of mind. And since this information has been brought up, it's only timely that our final speaker, although by means of a pre-recorded video, before we go to our open forum, is Director James Jimenez of the Education and Information Department of the Commission on Elections. So we will be sharing a video. So please hold.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. This is James Jimenez, the spokesperson of the Commission on Elections, and it gives me great pleasure to join you here today at the launching of Vote Right 2022, Democracy Watch's voter education program. Democracy Watch has been a long-time partner of the Commission on Elections, and this year, as ever, we will rely on DemWatch to reach out to the constituencies that need to be educated about the coming elections. And this is a very timely program if you think about it, because there's a lot riding on these elections. I've heard it said often enough and over and over that this is going to be a consequential elections, and truly it will be. The winner of the coming elections will, of course, hold the helm of the country for the next 6 years, defining government policies, defining the way we will survive through the rest of this pandemic, defining how we will rise from the troubles that are weighing us down now. Not just, of course, not just the pandemic, but also a sluggish economy, a whole lot of other challenges besetting our nation. And the recovery from all of that, the rising above all of that, begins with the elections, as it always does. And so with so much riding on these elections, it becomes absolutely necessary for the voting public to understand the process that they're about to undergo. Of course, it's a given that this is the first elections of the pandemic era, and that has been discussed many times, and it will perhaps be discussed again at length today by other speakers. But in all of that, it is important to stay grounded in the fact that these elections are critical and that their success ultimately depends on the public's trust in the system that we will be using. And to that end, I would like to take you on a short tour of the automated election system and how it protects our right to vote. To that end, let me share my screen so that we can begin this presentation. By now, you must have seen this logo several times, Vote Safe Pilipinas. The logo features a man and a woman, socially distanced, both wearing masks, which actually double for a hand with a indelible ink-stained fingertip. Obviously, this references the fact that we want the elections in 2022 to be safe for ordinary people, for people who will go to the polling places and cast their votes even in the midst of a pandemic. But SAFE is actually an acronym. It stands for Secure, Accurate, Free, and Fair Elections. These are the 4 fundamentals of the 2002 and 2022 NLE. The COMELEC's preparations have been founded on these 4 fundamentals: that the elections be secure, accurate, free, and fair, ensuring that the electorate is able to vote safe in more ways than one. So let's tackle secure, accurate, free, and fair. Again, all of this under the assumption that the elections, of course, have been prepared with the overarching goal of keeping everyone safe from COVID-19. But we also want to make sure that the elections themselves are ultimately trustworthy and credible. And for that, we have SAFE. First, secure elections. When we talk about the elections being secure, we have made sure that we get this outcome by first and foremost conducting not 1, but 2 source code reviews. An international certification process participated in by an international certification entity, and a local source code review. The international certification process ensures that the automated election system, or AES, is free from malicious code, using international standards of ensuring that the system we are going to use is free from any pre-programmed results, free from any instructions that would otherwise undermine the integrity of the voter's choice. The local source code review, on the other hand, a local counterpart of the international certification process, essentially allows interested parties, primarily coming from the political parties of the Philippines, to verify the integrity of the code. Out of these source code reviews, we come up with a trusted version of the software, one that we are sure does not have any monkey business ingrained in its DNA. Now, apart from the source code reviews, the elections, the automated elections, are also protected by strong encryption. We use the AES block cipher and the SHA-256 hash function, which together encrypts the results of the elections in such a way that we can remain confident that whatever comes into the machines gets generated as results and can be trusted regardless of how far down the electoral process we go. In 2019, LSCR reviewers or local source code reviewers concluded that if ever the data package used in the automated election system were to be subjected to a man-in-the-middle attack, the contents of the data packet would not be compromised. The AES, after all, is world recognized as a virtually unbreakable code. Certainly, it has not been broken to date, and not for lack of people trying. Now, the elections are not just secure, they're also accurate. The COMELEC has gone through great pains to ensure that the election results are reliable. This is primarily built on the back of a tamper-evident design that features multiple redundancies, where you have results being reported out at various levels, not just at the municipality, where you have your precincts, but also at the various canvassing levels, from municipal, provincial, to the national canvas. And not just that, the machines themselves at the level of the precinct output a voter verifiable paper audit trail, thus starting the verification and monitoring of the system at the level of the voter. The voter is able to check the voter verifiable paper audit trail to ensure that it reflects the votes that they placed on their ballots and that they entered into the machine through the ballot box. Apart from this, the whole system is subjected to a random manual audit that checks the accuracy of the machine's appreciation of the ballot marks. In the past, we've had random manual audits since 2010, the start of automation in the Philippines. And in all of that time, 2010, 2013, 2016, and 2019, we've had accuracy ratings of better than 99.95% every single elections. Meaning to say, in every single iteration of the automated election system, we have had results that we have had machines that have counted the marks accurately. Again, this means that the results are ultimately reliable. But not to put faith in that system alone, you have to understand that we have integrated monitoring mechanisms baked into the design of the system itself. For example, there are multiple printed election returns. Election returns are printed in multiple copies of up to 30 that are distributed to various interested parties, meaning to say, each one holding a copy of a printed election return potentially has the ability to back check every single result all the way up to president, simply because they have access to the building blocks of those results. We also have a public results website where the whole process of canvassing is actually democratized. Anyone with a computer, a calculator, and enough time will be able to conduct a comprehensive canvass of election results. Once again, from the lowest elected position all the way up to the president. And finally, we have a transparency server that allows members of the media to keep track of the elections as the counting happens. And all of this in the service of ensuring that the election results remain accurate. And speaking of transparency servers, the transparency servers are crucial to ensuring that the elections remain free. Again, as I said earlier, the transparency server allows media to keep pace with the count. And the public results website allows the public to do its own version of the quick count. The quick count, of course, is a venerated concept in Philippine elections, where we're able to back check whatever the official election management body is doing in terms of counting. You have the official count and, historically the quick count. But of course, with automation, the quick count has really mostly been a matter of monitoring. Now, speed of counting, the speed at which we count the election results, eliminates any window of opportunity for vote padding and vote shaving. This is a crucial difference between elections prior to automation. Without automation, dagdag bawas becomes a very real threat. But with automation and with the speed at which the results are arrived at, dagdag bawas becomes a losing proposition. The prompt release of election results also protects election workers and potentially diffuses tensions in hotly contested areas. Won't do that all the time, of course, but in many places, when the election results have been announced, the political tensions very quickly dissipate. More importantly, because election workers are no longer responsible for coming up with the election results, the burden is removed from them, making them safer, contributing, of course, to the high acceptability of automated elections to election workers nationwide in the past 2 to 3 elections. Finally, the elections are fair, and this is promoted by the automated election system. How does it do this? Well, the AES promotes the fairness of elections through automated counting, which eliminates structural advantages in the election, such as perceived bailiwicks and command votes. Again, this has been reflected in the past elections, where bailiwicks have sort of evaporated in terms of results. Then you talk about electronic transmission, which eliminates delays which can be taken advantage of by candidates with public relations or public sentiment manipulation budgets. When people no longer have time to condition the minds of the public to accept a predetermined result, then you have a fairer environment for the elections, where ultimately the election results are easier to accept for everyone. And finally, automated consolidation and canvassing eliminates any windows of opportunity for results manipulation, ultimately making the elections fair. Ladies and gentlemen, the elections of 2022 will be secure, they will be accurate, they will be free and fair. A lot of it will depend on the voters themselves, on us, on our vigilance. But we cannot trivialize the contribution of the automated election system to our safe elections. And before I go, I'd like to reiterate my congratulations to Democracy Watch and its partner, Strat-based Albert Del Rosario Institute, for the launch of vTHD 2022. It is an excellent program, and we in the Commission on Elections are very blessed to have them watch as a partner, because it makes our job that much easier, our reach that much greater, and the elections that much more solid in terms of voter participation, in terms of having an enlightened and informed electorate. Mabuhay po ang DemWatch, mabuhay ang Strat-based Albert Del Rosario Institute. Maraming salamat.
Thank you so much, Director Jimenez, and I hope that that was very informative for all our participants here. We are currently at around a little over 600 participants, actually, from different schools across the world, across the country. So thank you for being here. And now we open the floor for the open forum. Just also a quick addition to what Attorney Onna was mentioning about finding your precinct before election day. Ms. Myla actually pitched in and said that the COMELEC will release a precinct finder in March. So this is a site where you can find your precincts before election day. I do think also that you can email COMELEC and ask about your voter registration status or your precinct. I think, well, that's what I did a few months ago. So, okay, please leave your questions in the Q&A box. And we actually have a few questions here now. There's a question. Let's go with a more technical question first. There's a question regarding voting. For example, I don't want to vote for any candidate on a certain national seat and I left that in blank. Does my entire vote not count anymore, or is it considered void or only for that seat? And also for senatorial seats, do I have to vote exactly 12 so that my vote can be counted? What if I only want to vote less than 12? Thank you. So anyone from the panel can take the question.
Yeah, Kim, I'll take that one.
Okay.
So there's such a thing as undervoting. Sometimes I find it difficult to complete 12 senators. So it is okay, but please try to think about your vote in order that you are prepared. If it's because you don't have time, then that's a different scenario. But if you really can't come up with 12, it's okay. That's what you call undervoting. But you cannot overvote, meaning if you vote 13, that portion becomes not viable. You also cannot vote 2 presidents because that position becomes not viable. But undervoting is okay.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Myla. Since you're already here, also someone asked how they can be a PPCRV volunteer. What are the steps to volunteer?
Okay, well, generally, if you want to be in the field, and I do encourage, group of friends to volunteer for the Voters Assistance Desk, you can go to your nearest parish. And here you will be able to find a PPCRV coordinator. And if they do not have one, they can recommend a parish where you can sign up. You need to be of voting age in the field if you want to be a poll watcher. But if you just generally want to help and you're below 18, you can help with food, send it to the voting center, help with water, help with logistics, and participate. Again, it's a lot of fun. I mean, invite friends and groups of friends. Now, there's also the command center where we welcome any participant. If you're interested, you will find information in our website on volunteerism, and we will soon launch an app where you can register yourself and find your nearest precinct. Perhaps around March 1, we will have this mobile app already available in Facebook and in our websites and all of our social pages. But easiest, go to your parish.
Thank you, Ms. Myla. Okay, there's another question, and I think anyone from the floor can take it. There's someone who asked, why is there a disconnect between the survey for voter priorities regarding issues versus voter candidate preferences, and how can these be aligned? If anybody wants to take that. Okay, I see Dr. Khan.
Yeah, I think that's where the quite effective disinformation campaign is happening, because instead it's really what's happening. Disinformation undermines our freedom, because to be free we have to be able to choose, and to be able to choose we have to have accurate information. But if people are being fooled by disinformation and they're thinking that they have the ideal candidate when actually it's based on a lot of lies, then in a way we are undermining our own democracy.
That's true. Does anyone else want to add anything? I think I see Professor Dindo.
Yeah, for that question, though I'm not here for the panel, but it's something that I'm passionate about, because I really fear the pandemic disinformation that has been happening in the Philippines, not only for this election, but even in past few years with regards to certain policies and governance. And it's very critical that we really organize ourselves, we really get people together to fight this disinformation. I remember speaking among different civil society groups, and they said, "Sir, are you encouraging us to go negative?" I don't know. It's not about being negative. It's about raising certain facts, data that is already there, that's being twisted and being used for this disinformation for certain groups' political objective. And that's my great fear, that how can you govern beyond the elections of 2022 if you win, you convert votes, you generate voter preferences and support due to disinformation. That's very dangerous. Hope I contributed to the question.
Yeah. Thank you, Professor Manhit. That's true. Disinformation is dangerous, and we aim truly to combat it. So moving forward, I think there are more technical questions here, and I think though Director Jimenez isn't with us, we have Ms. Myla and her team from PPCRV. There are some questions here I think that they can address. So first is, what are the preparations in case of another 7-hour glitch? And may we also know where the main server is located? So that's...
Thank you for that question. We're very much working with COMELEC and asking them to assure us that they are already pumping these servers with information at the scale at which the elections really come through. If you have about 65 million voters at 71% turnout possibility, then we should pump the transparency and all the servers with the same type of information flow, which they failed to do in 2019. They are preparing not to do the same mistake twice. As regards to the transparency server, it will be in a PLDT data center. These data centers are very secure. They have the right temperature, the right environmental conditions. However, the mirror results will be at the University of Santo Tomas, available to us in near real time. I hope that answers.
Thank you, Ms. Myla. There's also another question that hopefully the team can address. What happens if there's no Wi-Fi in the voter precinct? How can the results be transmitted electronically? What is the backup plan for this type of situation?
I guess as a technical person, I'll take that too. So this network is pretty sealed off from the internet. So you are not expecting Wi-Fi to be the means of transporting the data. That's too dangerous. So our telecommunications companies have lines, dedicated ways by which the VCM transmits the data. If it's very remote, like in the provinces, they have what you call a BGAN. That would be, in a way, satellite-based. We are 7,100 islands, so you can expect some very remote areas not to have the right or usual connectivity. So satellite is a means. But no, Wi-Fi is not a means of transmission. It's really telco grade ways.
Thank you, Ms. Myla. Someone asked here also where they can access the soft copy of the comics that I think you had shown in your slides earlier.
I'm so happy that maybe I'll send it to you, Kim, and you can disseminate it across. It's very popular, by the way, guys. Everybody wants it because it's high quality. But thank you for asking.
Thank you. And then I think last 2 questions, because we're also running out of time. First, someone asked if, and maybe Attorney Onna can take this, someone asked if can foreigners vote? And I guess I'd like to follow up with, how can foreigners participate in election-related matters in the country, if ever?
Foreigners are not allowed to vote. Only Filipino citizens are allowed to vote under our constitution. So, ano niya rin, taking into consideration niya rin, kahit yung mga overseas Filipinas natin, they are allowed to vote, and that's due to the Overseas Voting Act of 2013. And nagkaroon tayo ng first overseas voting, I think, around 2007. So foreigners are not allowed to vote, and there's a strict prohibition under our Omnibus Election Code that they are not supposed to support any candidate or political party because that's considered as foreign interference.
Thank you. Thank you, Attorney.
After his disinformation, I just want to add to the conversation. Social media is so massive, it's prevalent. But remember, there's a survey that which came out earlier this year that which had as one of its conclusion that the trusted sources of information still for the different age groups, Boomer, Gen Z, Gen X, Gen Y, Millennial, tatlo lang umiikot, family, friends, and journalists. So, as much as we have access to varied, different information, at the end of the day, we have our family and friends that we listen to. So, please make sure that you talk to your family and friends and not focus on the online chatter. Yes, okay din naman mag-online discussion, but at the end of the day, we are influenced still by our friends and family. So, talk to your friends, talk to your family, engage with them. Baka yung nakukuha information ng lola-lola mo is disinformation. And what part of something that you can do is correct that information that your lola got from YouTube or Facebook. So, do not stop talking to your friends and family because sila yung pinaka-influensyan on who we will vote for in the upcoming elections.
Thank you, Attorney Onna. That's true. We can't discount the people-to-people interactions that we have. So going beyond the social media sphere, but also still engaging when and where we can on social media because this information is prevalent. So final question. Someone asked, good morning po. I just want to ask that how should we avoid vote buying during campaign season? So anyone can take that. Does anyone want to take that from the panel?
I'll answer, but you probably my other co-panelists will have an answer as well. As we all know, vote buying, vote selling are election offenses. So it's a crime. It's punishable by imprisonment by 1 to 6 years. And you can file for probation if you're found guilty of committing an election offense. But the reality is vote buying is very rampant in the Philippines, especially when we started using the automated election system since 2010. Ang hirap na kasi dayain ng mga makina. Siyempre, unlike before na ang daling manakot, ang daling mag-bribe ng mga tao, the machines can't be bribed, the machines can't be threatened. So what politicians and the supporters did was to resort to old school fraud or go directly to the voters and buy their votes. So please somehow influence the votes of these voters. So what can we do against vote buying and vote selling? First is not to accept. Kasi yung pera na yan, most probably, it came from, especially if it's an incumbent candidate or part of the government, galing sa atin yung pera. So, that's the first thing to do. Not accept money for vote buying or not sell our votes for vote selling. Yun.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Attorney Onna. I see that there are last minute questions, but I'm sorry we won't be able to accommodate them anymore due to the interest of time. I saw some questions asking where, if they can get a copy of the presentations or see the recording of the webinar. It will be up on the Strat-based Albert Del Rosario Institute website. Please just stay tuned for that. And before I call on our closing remarks speaker, today, we are sharing a copy of the PPCRV comics in the Zoom chat now. It's being uploaded by it has been uploaded by PPCRV already. Thank you so much, Ms. Myla and team. So final announcement, since this is the Vote Right launch, the first leg of our voter education activities will be on the 24th of March. That is a Thursday, if I'm not mistaken, and that will be for schools from the National Capital Region. So stay tuned for more announcements. We will be posting further updates on our Facebook page, Democracy Watch Philippines. So without further ado, I am calling on our final speaker of the day, Mr. Paco Pangalangan, the lead convener of Democracy Watch. He specializes in political risk analysis, policy development, and strategic communications. And over the last decade, he has worked with a wide range of sectors, including energy, technology, and public utilities. He is passionate about effecting meaningful change through advocacy and policy work, and does so here at Democracy Watch Philippines. So, Sir Paco.
Yes, thanks. Thanks for the nice intro, Kim. So good morning, everybody. I'll be closing today's vTHD by reading a Democracy Watch statement. But before I do, please allow me first and foremost to express my appreciation to the speakers for their valuable contributions to today's voter education launch. Professor Dindo Manhit of Strat-based ADR, I, Bishop Ambo, PPCRV Chair Myla, Attorney Onna of Lente, Professor Khan of Check.ph, and of course, COMELEC Director James Jimenez, who joined us through a pre-recorded video. My deepest gratitude also goes out to the over 600 participants that attended today's event and helped make it such a success. A quick review of the list of participants shows me that we have partners, students, and teachers that have joined us from the University of San Carlos, the University of St. LaSalle, University of Perpetual Help, the FINMA Education Network, PUP, University of Nuevo Cáceres, JRU, St. Paul College of Ilocos Sur, and St. Paul University, Manila, Xavier University, Ateneo Dinaga, Adamson University, and of course, University of the Philippines. Democracy Watch is honored that so many have joined the launch of its Vote Right 2022 voter education campaign. Ahead of the May 2022 elections, Democracy Watch Philippines has partnered with the COMELEC to launch its nonpartisan voter education program organized with different colleges and universities across the country. While it's Democracy Watch's goal to educate young voters, I can't help but learn new things as well and be inspired by our speakers this morning. Bishop Ambo talked to us about the values, and the importance of casting our votes for candidates with integrity. Attorney Onna also talked about hashtag sa atin ang eleksyon and why it's important that we as voters know our rights. Professor Dindo Manhit, of course, highlighted the pandemic of disinformation that we're facing today, and Professor Rachel Tan talked about that fact-checking state of mind and the need for critical thinking, especially during the elections. Chair Myla discussed volunteerism and and the role that CSOs and us as individual citizens have in upholding transparent elections. And she also discussed DCMs and how they help as well in making elections transparent and reliable. Director James did the same thing, and he talked about the different initiatives that the COMELEC has launched to bring transparency and accountability to our voting through the use of automated election systems. So this morning's discussion was indeed enlightening and informative, and I thank all for sharing their time. Now to get to, as promised, to the closing statement, which is a Democracy Watch statement that I'll be reading to you entitled "The Fight of Our Lives." The elections in May will be a high-stakes make-or-break exercise. We will choose a leader who will either mire us in deeper economic and governance misery, or who will turn things around and give us a reason to be hopeful again. As citizens, we must actively assert our rights and uphold our democracy. Democracy Watch calls on Filipino voters to exercise our duty to vote into office only those who truly deserve to become our leaders. The effort does not begin and end on May 9. It begins now, and the people, with the people being specific, deliberate, and discriminating about the kind of person that we want to install as our president. Democracy is threatened when the process of arriving at an informed decision on whom to vote for is deliberately confused and twisted. As the campaign goes into full swing, we see how disinformation distorts, erases, and spins the facts into mere propaganda to manipulate the people into adopting a certain preference or mindset. Let us fight this by being more conscious about the source and quality of our information. Let's adopt a fact-checking mindset and be wary of those who are cavalier with the truth. Democracy is tarnished when the people decide on the basis of who is likely to win rather than who truly deserves to win. Unfortunately, many resign their fate to the results of early surveys, ignoring what is apparent or even what makes good sense. Let us resist doing this. The easy way, the lazy way. The future of our nation is worth the effort of due diligence. Democracy is weakened when we do not learn from our mistakes and elect the same people over and over again. We have seen proof, authentic documents, photos and videos, prior statements that point to the incompetence, arrogance, and moral turpitude of some people. Let us open our senses, appreciate the evidence, and follow the paper trail to take us where it leads us. Democracy is undermined when darkness and opacity are preferred over light and transparency. With openness comes accountability. When candidates refuse to engage those outside their circle of admirers, when they reject the opportunity to respond to challenging or controversial questions, when they look at criticism as a personal affront, they reveal to us who they truly are and aren't. Let us support only those who welcome criticism, engage their adversaries, and answer the difficult questions. This May 9, let us vote as though our life depended on it, because it does. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been an honor to be among such an accomplished and passionate group of individuals and to be able to present Democracy Watch's statement before you all. Thank you and have a good day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Myla.
Miss
Thank you so
Myla.
much.
Thank you. Take care, Myla.
Thank you and congrats.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Dr. Rachel.
Thank you. Professor Manhit, thank you as well.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kim and
Thank you.
Jackie.
Yeah, thank you for the moderation, Kim. Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye.
All right, have a good day.